When we planned this conference, we had a number of goals which I'll get to in a moment, but I want to begin by thanking people that have made this possible. The Ford Foundation for basically funding this, which was great. The core committee of people who really worked to get the right people on the panels, and over the course of probably the last 13 months or so, which would be Phil Williams and Myra Lusker at the University of Florida, and Alex Bakulich and Sue Weischer and Christy Schott on our staff at the Jesuit Social Research Institute, and Elisa Wolfter also at the University of Florida, who Christy and Elisa did a lot of that stuff that, you know, name tags, badges, parking, meals, arrangements, etc. And we want to thank all of them for making this possible. Our co-sponsors, whose names are all down the side, and you have representatives from all of them here for the events here. The College of Law for hosting us, Peter McCardle for taping us, and the technological help. And all of you for being here, for your own commitments, for your interest, for your participation. We had a series of goals that we wanted to do here, and you can think about how well we did that. First was to shine the light on immigration detention, which is for many people, as we've heard again on this panel, a hidden reality in America, and to shine the light on the experience of those who are detained and their families. And Omar was our most eloquent person to do that, but so did others in their experience of working with detainees and their families. A second goal was to look at the detention reality through multiple lenses. The economic and political realities and underpinnings of the detention system, the connections between race and racism, illegality and detention, the views and responses of faith and the people of faith to the detention reality, and an array of advocacy strategies, which we've tried to deal with here. We wanted to connect, which a lot of conferences don't, scholars, advocates, people of faith, lawyers, students, and some long-time veterans, some real experts who've been with us as resource people or even here in the audience with us. And to connect all of us to the struggles for just immigration and detention policies and practices. And we wanted to pursue a collaborative, what Jesuits call mode of proceeding, that has engaged multiple parts of 3 universities: the University of Florida, Loyola University of New Orleans, and Tulane University. Out of that, I think I can fairly say, quoting the letter of St. John, a little something about what I think we have seen and heard, a phrase that the black Catholic bishop picked up for a letter they wrote about the faith of the black community in America. And I think we've seen and heard a wide range of knowledge about immigration and specifically about detention. And there's been a lot of learnings where people have said to me, wow, I didn't realize it's going to be so rich, and the things I've learned being here. I think we've seen and heard deep commitments from you and from the presenters and others to the care for persons in or persons threatened by detention. I think we have seen and heard a passion for justice and for human rights here. I think we've seen and heard a lot of networking among you, among us, people passing cards back and forth in our addresses, and we need to talk about this, I'll get you involved in this, or whatever it is. And I think we've seen and heard many ways that we all could respond to the detention reality. One of the significant things here was we brought the faith community into a more academic conversation, and we did it very purposefully. And I think I'm going to close with kind of a faith perspective. I was the president of Catholic Charities USA for 9 years in the 90s, and went through and tried to guide the movement through the welfare reform debate. And as I traveled the country, meeting with staffs and boards, etc., around the country, the great experience among Catholic Charities staffs in the country was an experience of hopelessness, that what the Congress was going to do and eventually did would be very bad for poor people in America. And so one of the things I had to get in touch with, and as a person of faith myself, was actually the virtue that we don't think about much, the one that sits between faith and charity, and that's hope. That hope is about, and go back to the scriptures, hope is about not seeing great success and signs of success and votes on the board in our favor, but hope is about planting seeds from which harvests come and forests grow, in which all the birds of the air can find a home. That's what hope's about. And as I traveled the country, I'm going to end with this quotation. I was in, I think, Santa Rosa, California, meeting with the Catholic Charities staff there for a day of reflection, etc. And for the opening prayer, They had something, and actually I still have an original copy, and on the bottom it says Bay Area Rapid Transit. There was one of those quotations up on the subway that they had taken down, and it was from Václav Havel, the Czech poet who later becomes the president of Czechoslovakia after the fall of the wall. And I had to go back and find it later. I think it, because I've later used it in some writing, I think was from his speech in Philadelphia at Liberty Hall in 1986. So it's 86. This is 3 years before major changes in his world. And he wrote this. And I'm going to read it to you. That's why I had to get you to connect me up here, Peter. He said this about hope. And this morning, Miguel was connecting us to the hope and hopelessness question. And Havel's a deeply religious person as well, and he wrote this. He said, either we have hope within us or we don't. It is a dimension of the soul, and it's not essentially dependent on some particular observation of the world or estimate of the situation. Hope is not prognostication. It is an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. Hope in this deep and powerful sense is not the same as joy that things are going well, or willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously headed for early success, but rather an ability to work for something because it is good, not just because it stands a chance to succeed. He goes on, hope is definitely not the same thing as optimism. It is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. It is this hope, above all, which gives us the strength to live and continually try new things, even in conditions that seem as hopeless as ours do here and now. I've always loved the last sentence, because he says this in 1986, when things to them in Eastern Europe looked hopeless. And 3 years later, all they had worked for, all they hoped for, all they prayed for, happened. And so we might take Václav Havel with us as we go. It is this hope above all, which gives us the strength to live and continually try new things, even in conditions that seem as hopeless as ours do here and now. So we thank you all of us who worked to make this happen. I think it was a great event.
So now we can party.